Well, good evening. Welcome to our Friday night Bible study for Friday, June 5, 2026, our first study in June. And glad you could join us. Um, in getting set up for this, I noticed that in the news today, there are some stories about the International Space Station. I didn't read up on them, didn't take time to do that, but apparently there's been an air leak, and instead of 1 pound of air a day, they're losing 2 pounds of air a day. And at one point, apparently, NASA instructed the astronauts to take shelter, but another story looked like the headline suggested that order had been taken back, so I don't know. Several weeks ago, we mentioned the incident in Newark, New Jersey, where an airplane landing at the airport supposedly hit a bakery truck that was driving by on the New Jersey Turnpike, which is also Interstate 95 there. And the NTSB preliminary um, information has been released, and apparently, from what they say, the plane did not actually strike the truck. The plane struck a light post, which got knocked down into the path of the truck, and the light post hit the windshield of the truck and then also knocked a hole in the side of the trailer. The light pole, as the plane hit it, damaged one of the tires, and it also put a cut in the side of the fuselage of the airplane. From what they said, the cabin crew, those who serve the passengers in the cabin, felt that and heard it, and the flight crew apparently was aware that something had happened, but they didn't think much of it. And the video that's been out of the driver, we thought it was showing the plane hit the truck, but actually what we saw makes a whole lot more sense if it's actually the light pole coming down unexpectedly in front of the windshield and smashing the windshield, which then caused all the craziness that we saw. And if the dash cam was attached to the windshield, that would explain why all the craziness in the video that we would have seen in it. So just found that out today and found it interesting, so I thought I'd share it since we had mentioned it before. Last week we read an entire book, the 12-chapter book of Ecclesiastes. Took us not quite an hour and a half with some of the preview information. That our stream was just a little bit over an hour and a half, and we got the entire chapter read through. So that means that this week we're prepared for the Song of Solomon, or in some Bibles, the Song of Songs. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and the various interpretations that are given it once we get started. So why don't we go ahead and do that now? Let's bow our heads. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this opportunity to come together and to examine the written word and to ponder its meaning for us and for our relationship with you. We want this exercise to have meaning, and we want it to help us grow in our understanding of you and your character. And for that, we know we need the help of the Holy Spirit. We want each person who listens to this and who participates to receive the blessing of the Holy Spirit. Now, we know that requires their willingness, but we ask that each will be willing and will invite the presence of the Spirit as we process this Bible book. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. So before we actually bring up the text, and let me get it up here on my other screen so it's ready when we get there, let's talk about some of the modes people have used for interpreting this book, the Song of Solomon. Now, the first and most obvious interpretation is to read it for what it essentially is, which is a love poem, a romantic poem, a poem about the attraction between males and females in the human species. And it's pretty elaborate. Some of the metaphors that get used in it are a little outside of what we would find romantic and endearing, because we are less of an agricultural and a tied to the land society. So
I'll tell you what, if you ever tell me I look like a donkey's dingle, I'm not going to be happy with you.
well, I don't think that's in this book. That's elsewhere, but yeah, there are places in this book that are just a little bit explicit.
That's not. Uh, that's kind of an insult.
Well, the like I say, the metaphors that are used in this are the metaphors that the people of that time and that culture and that link to agriculture and the land would have found endearing. Not necessarily what we would find endearing and romantic in our day.
This is another reason we need to read the Bible through the lens of the culture of the people who actually wrote it, not our lens.
Right.
I would be highly offended if you said that to me. But apparently, somebody back then would be pleased.
And we'll hear those passages and those metaphors as we read it. Now, that's one level of interpretation. Essentially, just read it literally like a romantic poem. Another level that is usually referenced in the titles in a King James Bible is that this is a tale of the relationship between the believer and our Creator, which, according to John, is Jesus Christ. And so they will talk about the believer and Jesus and suggest that the words of this book are descriptions of that relationship, the believer's intimate relationship with the Creator. And there's validity to that. There are sections of the Bible that talk about God's relationship with his people in romantic love terms. Specifically, the book of Hosea, when we get there, it's kind of all about that. There are passages in the book of Ezekiel that get a little bit more colorful, but they're using that basic metaphor of the relationship between God and his people as the intimate relationship between a man and a woman. And of course, we have talked in the past about how when Jesus came, he made that even more intimate by changing the metaphor from the food, from the male-female relationship to the food we eat. You are what you eat, and making that the metaphor for the relationship we should have with him. So that's another level of interpretation. A teacher that I used to listen to years ago once suggested that this book tells a story. And the reason we can't fully understand the story just by reading through it is because it's poetry and the story is out of order. So this happened and then this happened, but in this book you have to kind of take the pieces out and rearrange them. And he did that. I'm not going to try to do that tonight because I don't know. I've read through it. I've kind of speculated for myself what might be in order for the story, but that's just one way of looking at it. And, you know, if you want to kind of think along that line, then you can do it as we read through it. But a few years ago, I heard another approach to interpreting this. And we're going to talk a little bit about that before we actually begin reading. This was written by Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. And we know a little bit about his love life because he had a lot of women. The numbers given are 300 wives, 600 concubines. So a lot of women, more than he could possibly hope to satisfy. And that was just that culture's way of being ostentatious and of demonstrating your power as a person. And Solomon ended up falling victim to that. To some extent, Solomon's father, David, did so also, because he had, we don't know how many, but quite a number of wives and a bunch of concubines, some of whom were left mateless after Absalom's rebellion, and we can read about that. So that kind of dulls the idea of the romantic nature of this, because the writer had so many women. But the interpretation that I heard a few years back that I find fascinating is the idea that there are actually two different relationships being discussed in this book. And one of them is a relationship that's charged with pomp and ceremony and everything's formal, but that it's ultimately emotionally unsatisfying because it's so formal. Whereas there's another relationship which is more down to earth, less formal, but which is more emotionally satisfying. And then the takeaway from that being that what type of relationship do we want to have with our Creator? Do we want to have the formal, ostentatious, lots of form and ceremony type of relationship, or do we want to have the simple, earthy, and ultimately satisfying sort of relationship? And we can talk about that as we read through it. Now, there is some speculation about some of the names or identifications given in this poem, because there is reference to a Shulamite. And there are interpreters who look at that and say perhaps we're actually looking at the Shunammite, the young woman who was brought in at the end of David's life to keep him warm and to extend his life for a few more weeks, maybe months. And her name was Abishag, and we know that a little bit later, after David died, Solomon apparently took charge of this young woman, and Adonijah, his older brother, and the oldest living son of David eligible to take the throne, came to Solomon and asked to take this young woman as his wife. And the request so angered Solomon that he sent his bodyguard out to kill his older brother. And so it was one of the things mentioned in the history as a way that Solomon established himself as the king of Israel. But and we have discussed that in the past along the lines that in that culture people have suggested to have the king's wife was to have the ability to assert your right to be the king in his place. And we suggested that that is why David insisted on getting his first wife, Michal, daughter of Saul, back from Paltiel after he became king to assure that somebody else didn't lay claim to the throne based on having David's first wife. And that even though he got her to come to Jerusalem, she despised him, and the two of them did not have a productive relationship, and she remained barren for the rest of her life. So that's one way to look at this confrontation between Solomon and Adonijah. His name escaped me for a second there. That Solomon was just making sure that Adonijah did not then have a reason to claim the throne. And in fact, in the narrative, Solomon specifically says, well, why doesn't he just ask for the whole kingdom? But there might be something else to it. And we're going to go back again to the story of David. David, from the time he was roughly 15, maybe a little bit earlier, became very good friends with the son of the king, Prince Jonathan. And at some point, the two had some very poignant moments expressing their devotion to each other. And about the time that David became king at the age of 30, Jonathan, along with his father, was killed by the Philistines in the battle that ultimately ended Saul's reign because he died in it. And that opened the door for David to become king after a couple of years of battle between him and the household of Saul. So at that point, from there on, for the next 40 years of his life, when he would reign as king of Israel, David had this gap in his life. Yeah, he had these women, and he had sons by these women. But David was apparently pretty carried away with all the work of ruling the kingdom. And so his first sons didn't turn out too well. And you know what? When they get to be 15 to 20 years of age, they get involved in some pretty scandalous behavior. And they make a lot of trouble for David. So Amnon consults with his cousin, one of David's nephews, and arranges to rape his half-sister Tamar, and in so doing earns the wrath of his third brother Absalom, who a couple of years later invites him to a party and has his men kill him. So now then Absalom runs away, and David's lost his oldest son. His second son is we assume, the heir to Nabal of Carmel, since he was the daughter of Nabal's widow. The son, rather, of Nabal's widow. And Absalom is gone, and eventually he too will die, leaving Adonijah as the oldest living son to the throne, but all of them appear to be problems. And then David has that disastrous encounter with Bathsheba. But from Bathsheba, then, Solomon is born. And it is partly, I think, because of the disgrace cast on Bathsheba by society because of how she became David's wife, that Solomon adopted the practice of the queen mother and gave his mother a position next to his as perhaps an advisor. But Solomon now gets named as David's successor. Why would he do that? And Adonijah was there, he was available. And I wonder if perhaps what happened was that in Solomon, David found a replacement for his best friend forever, Prince Jonathan. And it may be that Solomon became who he was because he had a bond with his father, unlike the other sons who turned out to be pretty serious problems for their dad. And so now we get to this point where Solomon becomes king. Well, he only becomes king about the time his father passes away. So now, for 30 years of his life, he's had this close bond with his father. And now he's lost his father. But then there is this young woman who helped his dad in the final months of his life. And through her, perhaps he can have a continued connection to his dad. And then if what we say about this Shulamite actually being Abishag the Shunammite, then he forms a bond with this young woman, and it becomes a bond of companionship and close identification and common interest that we would suggest in our day forms the foundation of a solid marriage. And so for that reason, then when Adonijah requests this young woman, Solomon's like, take away from me my connection to my dad? Not going to happen. You deserve to die for that. Kind of a pretty violent reaction, but perhaps we can understand it in that way. And then if that's the case, then I would suggest that the less formal and more intimate and fulfilling relationship in this book could be that relationship with Abishag the Shunammite. Whereas the more formal one would be Solomon's relationship with the daughter of Pharaoh, the princess of Egypt. She became his main wife in part to establish an alliance between Egypt and Israel, and Solomon built her a big palace, but she was not the mother, and I'm going to look it up here to be positive, but I don't believe she was the mother of Solomon's successor, Rehoboam. That in fact, Solomon chose the son of a different woman to succeed him as king of Israel. And let me see if I can find that here. Rehoboam gets mentioned in chapter 12 where he went to Shechem. Yes, but we have to go on to chapter 14 of 1 Kings. Rehoboam, son of Solomon, was king in Judah. He was 41 years old when he became king, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel in which to put his name. His mother's name was Naamah. She was an Ammonite. Now, that tells us pretty clearly if she was an Ammonite, a descendant of the people descended from Lot through the son known as Ammon, then clearly she was not the princess of Egypt. So the princess of Egypt was the formal wife for the alliance's sake. She lived in the palace that Solomon built for her, but she did not become queen mother. That would have become the position of Naamah, the Ammonite wife of Solomon, who bore him his successor and heir. So there you have it. Solomon's marriage to the princess of Egypt, the daughter of Pharaoh, was a marriage of convenience, of ceremony, of an alliance, and there may well not have been much of a bond between them, or an attraction between them, because it was just formalized. And so as we read through this book now and read the poetry and the stories expressed in the poetry, we might find those instances where she is referenced, whereas someone else is referenced in other places. So here we go. And this is Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 1. And it says, "This is Solomon's song of songs, more wonderful than any other." Now, footnote A is going to tell us there that these headings are based largely on the gender of the Hebrew that's being used. And it says here, the headings identifying the speakers are not in the original text, though the Hebrew usually gives clues by means of the gender of the person speaking. So, like German, and not so much like English, which doesn't so much have gender for things. In German, nouns have a specific form depending on the gender that goes with them. So we can determine gender from the original Hebrew text, and that is how they determine what's said by the young woman, by the young women of Jerusalem, or by the young man, as you'll see here in this first chapter. So it starts out with a young woman speaking. "Kiss me, and kiss me again, for your love is sweeter than wine. How pleasing is your fragrance! Your name is like the spreading fragrance of scented oils. No wonder all the young women love you. Take me with you. Come, let's run. The king has brought me into his bedroom." Okay, that's kind of explicit, isn't it? There are kisses. There is, rather fawning talk about pleasance and pleasure here. And then it closes with the king bringing her into his bedroom. The young women of Jerusalem respond, "How happy we are for you, O king! We praise your love even more than wine. And then the young woman responds, how right they, assuming that's the young women of Jerusalem, are to adore you. I am dark, but beautiful, O women of Jerusalem, dark as the tents of Kedar, dark as the curtains of Solomon's tents. Don't stare at me because I am dark. The sun has darkened my skin.
Autumn,
Yeah.
I need a spoon.
To
Yag me.
yeah.
This is sappy.
It is. Absolutely. Don't stare at me because I am dark. The sun has darkened my skin. So there are some who suggest that this is talking about possibly an African woman because it talks about dark, but then it's very explicit now how she came to be dark. She's suntanned. The sun has darkened my skin. My brothers were angry with me. They forced me to care for their vineyards. So I couldn't care for myself, my own vineyard. And that's a bit of interpretation. I think you'll find that the NIV there just says, and made me take care of the vineyards, my own vineyard I have neglected. So they're a little less interpretive, just repeating the words, but as a suggestion that her own vineyard was herself, that she wanted to take care of, but she couldn't because her brothers, so there's a level of abuse here. Maybe not outright physical. What?
Oh, I shouldn't say that to a brother, should I?
What?
That brothers are bullies.
Well, I don't know. These brothers appeared to be. I was saying that there appears to be a level of abuse. Maybe it's not a very high level of abuse, but there's a certain amount of emotional abuse. And
you know what?
Huh?
Sisters are also bullies.
Who are bullies?
Sisters are also bullies.
Sometimes they are, yeah. So, yeah, she has spent a lot of time outdoors doing the work that her brothers should have done but were too lazy, so they pawned it off on the weak member of the family, which turned out to be their sister. Tell me, my love, where are you leading your flock today? Where will you rest your sheep at noon? For why should I wander like a prostitute among your friends and their flocks? Now, there's a footnote there. Hebrew reads like a veiled woman. So using the term prostitute there is probably a bit of an interpretation of the language. But the young woman now wants to know where the young man will be so that she can join him rather than wandering around looking for him among his friends and other flocks. Then the young man responds, if you don't know, O most beautiful woman, follow the trail of my flock and graze your young goats by the shepherd's tents. You are as exciting, my darling, as a mare among Pharaoh's stallions. How lovely are your cheeks! Your earrings set them afire. How lovely is your neck, enhanced by a string of jewels. We will make for you earrings of gold and beads of silver. Now, Who can doubt after reading that the author here, Solomon, finds it entirely appropriate to adorn women with precious stones to enhance their beauty? And that's troublesome for the people who want the Bible to condemn the wearing of jewelry. And there are places in the Bible that can be interpreted to suggest that Christian women shouldn't wear jewelry. Even in the New Testament, there are some passages. Although generally, modern interpreters read them and say, he isn't saying don't do that. He's just saying don't rely on that. Well, okay. It's just kind of a side issue here. Young woman again. The king is lying on his couch, enchanted by the fragrance of my perfume. My lover is like a sachet of myrrh, lying between my breasts. Getting a little bit explicit here. He is like a bouquet of sweet henna blossoms from the vineyards of En-Gedi. Just for the fun of it, let's look that up. Henna is a dye made from dried powdered leaves of Lawsonia inermis, used to produce reddish stains used in body art. It originates in North Africa and so on and so forth. So apparently those leaves are red, and so just for the interest's sake, what's it talking about there? Henna blossoms. Well, let's just add that and see what it says if we put the word blossoms on there. Henna blossoms refer to the small, intensely fragrant white or pink flowers that grow on the Lawsonia inermis, or henna shrub, a plant historically famous for the semi-permanent reddish-brown dye extracted from its leaves. While the leaves are used for tattoos and hair, the blossoms have their own unique characteristics, symbolic meanings, and applications. So, and you'll look at this right here, just below my picture there. Well, a little bit below that. You see this section which says, Names of God, cluster of henna blossoms. Song of Songs 114, my beloved is to me a cluster of henna blossoms in the vineyard. So that is taking that interpretation that the lover in this, the young man or lover in this poem, is a reference to Jesus. So now we understand perhaps a little bit better what this is when it talks about a bouquet of sweet henna blossoms from the vineyards of En-Gedi. Hello? Hello, what?
I don't follow that at all.
You don't follow what at all?
Jesus makes you red.
Well, no, because it's the leaves of the henna that make you red. The lover here is likened to the blossoms of henna, which is fragrant.
Are you saying that we get embarrassed if we follow Jesus?
No, not at all.
He makes you red.
No, I just pointed out. We're not talking about the henna leaves, we're talking about the henna blossoms. The red dye comes from the henna leaves, but this reference here is specifically to the blossoms, which are fragrant. Did I lose you? Are you even there?
I don't know.
Okay. Verse 15, the young man speaking. How beautiful you are, my darling. How beautiful.
What color are the blossoms? blossoms.
Well, you can't see what I had here. Looks like the blossoms can be white or pinkish red.
I think I'm going to be quiet because I'm having trouble talking. To me, I sound like I'm slurring.
You might be sleepy.
Not really. Just having a moment that I can't talk.
Okay.
So I'll be quiet. But you're going to have to explain to me what you're talking about. I've already forgot what you're talking about.
Well, again, recall that this is an agrarian, earthbound culture. So they're going to use
Word.
what?
I don't know that word.
What word?
Agrarian.
Oh, it's drawn from agriculture.
Okay, I thought it was something to do with the horses.
No, agrarian. Well, I mean, if you use horses to help you till the soil, yeah, then it has to do with horses. But it's about getting food from the land. And these people were more directly connected to the land because their life depended on it. So they will use these metaphors that have to do with things that in our culture we don't have a lot of experience with.
Like donkey dingles.
Yeah. Well, like I say, that's not in this book, I don't think so. In fact, here is one of the metaphors, or actually it's a simile here, but it's figurative language. Verse 15, how beautiful you are, my darling, how beautiful. Your eyes are like doves. Then we return to the young woman speaking. You are so handsome, my love, pleasing beyond words. The soft grass is our bed. Fragrant cedar branches are the beams of our house, and pleasant smelling firs are the rafters. Now, this may to some extent be a reference to the posh palace in which this took place. But then, wait a minute. What about soft grass being the bed? That suggests an outdoor encounter. And then the fragrant cedar branches are the beams of the house. We didn't cut down the cedar. The cedar is there in the field. And the pleasant smelling firs are there in the field. And we're imagining them as the elements of our house. And that's the end of chapter 1. I think there are 6 chapters here, so we'll see how we're doing. From the young woman, chapter 2, first verse, I am the spring crocus blooming on the Sharon plain, the lily of the valley. And footnote A tells us, traditionally rendered, I am the rose of Sharon. Sharon Plain is a region in the coastal plain of Palestine. All right. And in fact, it is from these passages that we get this idea of referring to Jesus as the lily of the valley and the rose of Sharon.
Wait. A lily is white. A rose is a bunch of colors.
Uh-huh.
A henna is red. Sounds to me like Jesus is a man of many colors.
Yeah, okay.
So we should not be racist.
Yeah, okay, I like that. There is a chorus that starts out, that uses these things. Um, Jesus, Rose of Sharon, um, Bright and Morning Star, so on and so forth. I'm unable to sing it exactly because it's been a while since I've remembered it. Anyway.
Well, you used to be in a group with a dumb name.
Oh, yeah. So the second verse then, spoken apparently by the young men, says, "Like a lily among thistles is my darling among young women." So now we're comparing the beloved, the young woman, to the other young women, and he says, she's like a lily amongst all these thistles. The other women don't count for much. You're way more valuable than the rest of them. Then the young woman replies, "Like the finest apple tree in the orchard is my lover among other young men. I sit in his delightful shade and taste his delicious fruit. He escorts me to the banquet hall. It is obvious how much he loves me. Strengthen me with raisin cakes, refresh me with apples, for I am weak with love. His left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me." Now here is a phrase that will get repeated. "Promise me, O women of Jerusalem, by the gazelles and wild deer, not to awaken love until the time is right." Now that's something of an interpretation. Not to awaken love until it is ready is the alternate reading that this version gives. Let me read that out of the NIV.
How about we not confuse love with lust?
Yeah, and
You see somebody and think, "Hey, that person's gorgeous. I'm in love." That's not love.
no.
And neither is a bank book a sign of love.
Okay, here's how it reads in the NIV. "Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you by the gazelles and by the does of the field, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." Now, maybe I need to look this up in the King James, because there is another sense sometimes given to that phrase. There's more than 6 chapters to this, so. "I charge you, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, by the roes and by the hinds of the field, that ye stir not up nor awake my love till he please." Now, the modern versions reword that a little bit and say, let's not stir up love until the time is right, as it does here. The way it reads in the King James, apparently that's the sense those translators were able to make of it. Don't awaken the king, my love, until he's ready. Well, yeah, if it's the king who has the power to execute you, probably not a good idea to wake him up if he doesn't want to be woke up. But maybe that's not what's meant here, and these modern versions do suggest this interpretation that love needs to wait until the time is right. That just making a dash for a relationship with someone of the other gender may not be the best way to guarantee a happy life. Reading on then. I hear my lover coming. He is leaping over the mountains, bounding over the hills. My lover is like a swift gazelle or a young stag. Look, there he is behind the wall, looking through the window, peering into the room. My lover said to me, what?
A peeping Tom?
Does sound like it, doesn't it?
Who you want to marry?
My lover said to me, rise up, my darling. Come away with me, my fair one. Look, the winter is past, and the rains are over and gone. The flowers are springing up. The season of singing birds has come, and the cooing of turtle doves fills the air. Looks like there's some doubt about that. Oh, yeah. They could be the season of pruning vines or singing birds or whatever. They put singing birds here because it kind of goes with the next line about the cooing of turtle doves. The fig trees are forming young fruit, and the fragrant grapevines are blossoming. Rise up, my darling. Come away with me, my fair one. And then the young man says, and that he's been quoted here, because the young woman is saying, my lover said these things to me. Now we have the young man speaking himself. My dove is hiding behind the rocks, behind an outcrop on the cliff. Let me see your face. Let me hear your voice. For your voice is pleasant, and your face is lovely. And then the young women of Jerusalem say, catch all the foxes, those little foxes, before they ruin the vineyard of love, for the grapevines are blossoming. And when you read that in the King James, it becomes the source of a common saying. Verse 15 out of the King James Version. Take us the foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vines, for our vines have tender grapes. So if you've heard that saying about the little foxes that spoil the vines, and the meaning of that phrase is usually you need to watch out for the little things because it's the little things that cause problems. But in this case, it's drawn from this verse 15 of Song of Solomon chapter 2. Now the young woman again. My lover is mine and I am his. He browses among the lilies. Before the dawn breezes blow and the night shadows flee, return to me, my love, like a gazelle or a young stag on the rugged mountains. And there's a footnote for the last verse, on the hills of Bether. All right. Do you translate or do you transliterate? That's kind of the difference there. Now we get into more of a story rather than just the two praising each other. chapter 3. One night, as I lay in bed, I yearned for my lover. I yearned for him, but he did not come. So I said to myself, I will get up and roam the city, searching in all its streets and squares. I will search for the one I love. So I searched everywhere, but did not find him. The watchmen stopped me as they made their rounds, and I asked, have you seen the one I love? Then scarcely had I left them when I found my love. I caught him and held him tightly. Then I brought him to my mother's house, into my mother's bed, where I had been conceived. Boy, that's getting explicit again, isn't it? Promise me, O women of Jerusalem, by the gazelles and wild deer, not to awaken love until the time is right. Then the young women of Jerusalem pitch in and have something to say. Who is this sweeping in from the wilderness like a cloud of smoke? Who is it fragrant with myrrh and frankincense and every kind of spice? Look, it is Solomon's carriage, surrounded by 60 heroic men, the best of Israel's soldiers. They are all skilled swordsmen, experienced warriors. Each wears a sword on his thigh, ready to defend the king against an attack in the night. King Solomon's carriage is built of wood imported from Lebanon. Its posts are silver, its canopy gold, its cushions are purple. It was decorated with love by the young women of Jerusalem. Now, exactly why is this bit about Solomon's carriage thrown in here? Because this begins to sound perhaps like the more formal thing. Solomon shows up. He's got an entire entourage, including soldiers, to serve as his bodyguard. And he's in a very posh carriage decorated by the young women of Jerusalem, specifically so they can express the way they feel about the king, kind of like the young women in David years earlier. Then the young woman says, come out to see King Solomon, young women of Jerusalem or of Zion. He wears the crown his mother gave him on his wedding day, his most joyous day. Well, his mother was Bathsheba, right? The crown his mother gave him would probably have been the crown of his father, David. Although, if it was on his wedding day, it may have been a different crown because he probably married, in fact, we're sure he married well before he became king, because Rehoboam, I think we read, was 41 when he became king, so he would have been born the year before Solomon became king. So Solomon obviously married somebody, including this Naamah, the Ammonite woman, before he became king. So maybe this was a special crown given to him to celebrate his wedding, and not the crown that indicated him as the king of Jerusalem. And that might be interesting that the young women would note and reference that. Moving on to chapter 4, the young man now speaks. You are beautiful, my darling, beautiful beyond words. Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair falls in waves, like a flock of goats winding down the slopes of Gilead. Here may be one of the things that a modern woman wouldn't want her lover calling her. Your teeth are as white as sheep, recently shorn and freshly washed. Your smile is flawless, each tooth matched with its twin. And there's a footnote A there. Not one is missing, each has a twin. Okay.
Well, at least they have teeth.
Yeah. Your lips are like scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is inviting. Your cheeks are like rosy pomegranates behind your veil. Your neck is as beautiful as the Tower of David, jeweled with the shields of 1,000 heroes. Your breasts are like two fawns, twin fawns of a gazelle grazing among the lilies. Before the dawn breezes blow and the night shadows flee, I will hurry to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of frankincense. You are altogether beautiful, my darling, beautiful in every way. That's how that chorus begins. Altogether lovely. Okay, and anyway, that comes from here too, by the way. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Come down from Mount Amana, from the peaks of Senir and Hermon, where the lions have their dens and leopards live among the hills. Hermon is technically in Lebanon, but is on the border, and it's one of the highest mountains in that region of the world. You have captured my heart, my treasure, my bride. Now, after treasure, there's a footnote there. My sister. Okay. And also in verses 10 and 12. You hold it hostage with one glance of your eyes, with a single jewel of your necklace. Your love delights me, my treasure, my bride. Your love is better than wine, your perfume more fragrant than spices. Your lips are as sweet as nectar, my bride. Honey and milk are under your tongue. Your clothes are scented like the cedars of Lebanon. You are my private garden, my treasure, my bride. A secluded spring, a hidden fountain. Your thighs shelter a paradise of pomegranates with rare spices, henna with nard and saffron, fragrant calamus and cinnamon, with all the trees of frankincense, myrrh, and aloes, and every other lovely spice. You are a garden fountain, a well of fresh water streaming down from Lebanon's mountains. Now, you may recall several months back, we were reading through the Psalms, and we came to Psalm 133, which says, Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. And one of the metaphors given there was, it is as if the dew of Hermon had descended on the mountain of Zion. So, the water came from farther north, and then the rivers flowed from there and helped to water the land of Israel. So that was a place that was a source of life and prosperity. So yeah, they would often use that then in their metaphors as something good and delightful. Now the young woman says, Awake, north wind, rise up, south wind, blow on my garden, and spread its fragrance all around. Come into your garden, my love, taste its finest fruits. Chapter 5. The young man says, I have entered my garden, my treasure, my bride. I gather myrrh with my spices and eat honeycomb with my honey. I drink wine with my milk. Then the young women of Jerusalem say, O lover and beloved, eat and drink. Yes, drink deeply of your love. Now, another story told by the young woman. I slept, but my heart was awake when I heard my lover knocking and calling. Open to me, my treasure, my darling, my dove, my perfect one. My head is drenched with dew, my hair with the dampness of the night. But I responded,
Mom calling that?
huh?
Who is speaking?
Well,
Yeah.
the young woman is speaking, but the words are in quotation marks indicating this is what she heard her lover saying when he was knocking.
He wants his giraffe.
He what?
He wants his giraffe.
Where'd you get that from?
Well, earlier he said she had a neck like a tower.
Okay. All right, I see where you're going.
When you have a second, it's 2:00. Can you bring me an Atkins, please?
Okay.
That's all.
Well, okay, everybody, just wait just a moment. This won't take long.
Yeah. Sorry. We should plan these things better. We're not a professional at all. You'd do much better if I just completely back out and be quiet. Thank you.
Okay, there, that's out of the way. But I responded, I have taken off my robe. Should I get
what?
dressed again?
You did what? You responded what?
Though this is a young woman speaking, and she says, but I responded, I have taken off my robe. Should I get dressed again? I have washed my feet. Should I get them soiled?
I'm in my pajamas.
My lover tried to unlatch the door, and my heart thrilled within me. I jumped up to open the door for my love, and my hands dripped with perfume. My fingers dripped with lovely myrrh as I pulled back the bolt. I opened to my lover, but he was gone. My heart sank. I searched for him, but could not find him anywhere. I called to him, but there was no reply. Now, we've already read something like this because back in chapter 3, she went out looking for her lover, and she ran into the night watchman. And then right after that, she found her lover. It's going to be a little bit different now because it says the night watchman found me as they made their rounds. They beat and bruised me and stripped off my veil, those watchmen on the walls. Now here's the question for you. Why would the watchmen abuse this woman? Well, if this woman is, as we have hinted perhaps, this non-royal woman brought in to service David, not sexually, but in terms of body heat. If this is who it is, then the powers that be in Jerusalem, interested in maintaining the appearance of all the formality and the alliance with Egypt and so on and so forth, may have had a very negative opinion of this young woman that seems to have captured the king's heart and his true devotion. And as such, then, they may indeed have physically abused her because of their attitudes that, well, something's wrong here, we need to fix this. Substituting their own judgment for the judgment of the king. Make this promise, O women of Jerusalem. If you find my lover, tell him I am weak with love. And then the young women of Jerusalem asked, why is your lover better than all others, O woman of rare beauty? What makes your lover so special that we must promise this? I'm going to talk about these next few verses in a moment because I've heard some weird things about them. My lover is dark and dazzling, better than 10,000 others. His head is finest gold. His wavy hair is black as a raven. His eyes sparkle like doves beside springs of water. They're set like jewels, washed in milk. His cheeks are like gardens of spices giving off fragrance. His lips are like lilies perfumed with myrrh. His arms are like rounded bars of gold set with beryl. His body is like bright ivory glowing with lapis lazuli. His legs are like marble pillars set in sockets of finest gold. His posture is stately like the noble cedars of Lebanon. His mouth is sweetness itself. He is desirable in every way. Such, O women of Jerusalem, is my lover, my friend. Now I want to read part of that out of the King James because this is the part that gets interesting. And I believe we're in chapter 5, are we? Yes. His head is as the most fine gold. His locks are bushy and black as a raven. Now, the first odd use I heard of that was from a gentleman I ran across in Colorado who was spouting his conservative, behavior-based approach to Christianity. And this was in the early 70s when hippies and long hair were a big thing, remember? And a lot of Christians were saying, you can't have long hair, that's wrong. And then the hippie types would say, but Jesus had long hair. Well, this guy wrote that, no, Jesus didn't have long hair because Song of Solomon says his hair was bushy and black. Huh? How does bushy and black indicate not long? I didn't get it. I didn't get it then, I don't get it today. Wavy and black is how these modern versions are putting it. Interestingly enough, when I was in college, I attended a Sabbath school led by a young African American. And he referenced this and pointed to the hair on his own head. Yeah, I have that, he said, referring to bushy and black.
You know, back in the 70s, it was popular for men to have afros.
Well, it was, yeah. Well, I think we finished that chapter, so we can move on now. Chapter 6, the young women of Jerusalem. And they say, where has your lover gone, O woman of rare beauty? Which way did he turn so we can help you find him? And then the young woman says, my lover has gone down to his garden, to his spice beds, to browse in the gardens and gather the lilies. I am my lover's, and my lover is mine. he browses among the lilies. Now the young man speaks up. You are beautiful, my darling, like the lovely city of Tirzah. Yes, as beautiful as Jerusalem, as majestic as an army with billowing banners. Turn your eyes away, for they overpower me. Your hair falls in waves, like a flock of goats winding down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are as white as sheep that are freshly washed. Your smile is flawless, each tooth matched with its twin. Again.
About to bring me a spoon when you brought that Atkins.
Your cheeks are like rosy pomegranates behind your veil. This is a repetition, essentially, of something we read earlier. Even among 60 queens and 80 concubines and countless young women, I would still choose my dove, my perfect one, the favorite of her mother, dearly loved by the one who bore her. The young women see her and praise her. Even queens and royal concubines sing her praises. Who is this, arising like the dawn, as fair as the moon, as bright as the sun, as majestic as an army with billowing banners, which we read up there at verse 4 as well. Another bit of story. I went down to the grove of walnut trees and out to the valley to see the new spring growth, to see whether the grapevines had budded or the pomegranates were in bloom. Before I realized it, my strong desires had taken me to the chariot of a noble man. And then the young women of Jerusalem say, Return to us, O maid of Shulam. Come back, that we may see you again. Here's where we reference the Shulamite. And this is what some people think may reference the Abishag the Shunammite. It's a guess. Young man, why do you stare at this young woman of Shulam as she moves so gracefully between two lines of dancers? And an alternative reading for that is, as you would at the movements of two armies, or as you would at the dance of Mahanaim. The meaning of the Hebrew, again, they say, is uncertain, as was the bit about the royal chariots or the chariots of Aminadab. Chapter 7. How beautiful are your sandaled feet, O queenly maiden! Your rounded thighs are like jewels, the work of a skilled craftsman. Your navel is perfectly formed, like a goblet filled with mixed wine. Between your thighs lies a mound of wheat, bordered with lilies. Your breasts are like two fawns, twin fawns of a gazelle. Your neck is as beautiful as an ivory tower. Your eyes are like the sparkling pools in Heshbon by the gate of Beth Rabbin. Your nose is as fine as the Tower of Lebanon overlooking Damascus. Well, that's interesting because Damascus and Lebanon are separate places anyway. Your head is as majestic as Mount Carmel, and the sheen of your hair radiates royalty. The king is held captive by its tresses. Oh, how beautiful you are! How pleasing, my love! How full of delights! You are slender like a palm tree, and your breasts are like its clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb the palm tree and take hold of its fruit. May your breasts be like grape clusters, and the fragrance of your breath like apples. May your kisses be as exciting as the best wine. And then the young women chime in, yes, wine that goes down smoothly for my lover, flowing gently over lips and teeth. Footnote B, as in the Greek and Syriac versions and the Latin Vulgate, the Hebrew reads, over the lips of sleepers. I am my lover's, and he claims me as his own. Come, my love, let us go out to the fields and spend the night among the wildflowers. Footnote C there, or in the villages. Let us get up early and go to the vineyards to see if the grapevines have budded, if the blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates have bloomed. There I will give you my love. There the mandrakes give off their fragrance, and the finest fruits are at our door, new delights as well as old, which I have saved for you, my lover. Now that reference to mandrakes takes slightly different meaning in that culture, because the people of that culture in that time considered the mandrake plant something of an aphrodisiac. So when he invites his love outdoors and says, there in the outdoors, I give you my love, and then immediately references the mandrakes, it's very clear that there is a sexual meaning intended in what's being written here. And now we move on to what I believe is the final chapter. Is that right? Yes. Chapter 8, the Song of Solomon. Oh, I wish you were my brother who nursed at my mother's breasts. Then I could kiss you no matter who was watching, and no one would criticize me. And this kind of references back to the night watchman who beat her, because apparently there was some criticism of this relationship.
She's allowed to make out with her brother?
Well,
really?
Yeah, that does kind of sound strange to us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I would bring you to my childhood home, and there you would teach me. Or there she will teach me. It's not clear. If he's taking to her childhood home, she would refer to her mother. I would give you spiced wine to drink, my sweet pomegranate wine. Your left arm would be under my head, and your right arm would embrace me. And then again this line, promise me, O women of Jerusalem, not to awaken love until the time is right. Young women of Jerusalem, who is this sweeping in from the desert, laying on her lover? And the young woman says, I aroused you under the apple tree where your mother gave you birth, where in great pain she delivered you. Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death, is jealousy as enduring as the grave. Now, we've skipped a whole bunch of footnotes there. We did read A, but now we've done B, C, and D. B says, not to awaken love until it is ready. All right. C says it's passion. And then in D, the Hebrew as Sheol, which is the place of the dead or the grave. So that's an appropriate translation. Love flashes like fire, the brightest kind of flame. Many waters cannot quench love, nor can rivers drown it. If a man tried to buy love with all his wealth, his offer would be utterly scorned. And I'm recalling a choral anthem that I performed when I was in college. And it opens up, many waters cannot quench love, neither can the floods drown it. And I forget the rest of it, but I know that was the opening line out of it. And those are words drawn from this poem, from this Song of Songs. The Young Woman's Brothers. We have a little sister, too young to have breasts. What will we do for our sister if someone asks to marry her? If she is a virgin, like a wall, we will protect her with a silver tower. But if she is promiscuous like a swinging door, we will block her door with a cedar bar. Now this may have a little something to do with the line that was repeated earlier up here in verse 4. Promise me, O women of Jerusalem, not to awaken love until the time is right. So now the young men are saying, well, we have this sister, but she's really not old enough yet. She's not gained sexual maturity. Her breasts have not developed. What will we do if someone asks to marry her? Well, we're going to protect her if she's a virgin. But if at that tender age she has become promiscuous, then we're going to block her in like a cedar bar. Now, this is a very different interpretation. If you read that in King James, it comes off kind of odd and perhaps hard to understand. Solomon's Song, chapter 8, verse 8 in the King James. We have a little sister, and she hath no breasts. What shall we do for our sister on the day when she shall be spoken for? If she be a wall, we will build upon her a palace of silver. And if she be a door, we will enclose her with boards of cedar. Well, in that wording, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I don't think that the NIV does much better for that reading. Let's see what it says. We have a young sister, and her breasts are not yet grown. What shall we do for our sister for the day she is spoken for? If she is a wall, we will build towers of silver on her. If she is a door, we will enclose her with panels of cedar. So, the translators of this version have taken some liberties with the text. And this is a meaning that they sense in this bit about the little sister. And that's why when I see this, I suggest perhaps it has something to do with this earlier verse about promise me, O women of Jerusalem, not to awaken love until the time is right. Don't give in to lust, hoping to find happiness in life that way. Wait until true love blossoms and a true bond can be made between individuals who understand and can relate to each other. Then you let the lust become part of that relationship. I was a virgin like a wall. Now my breasts are like towers. When my lover looks at me, he is delighted with what he sees. Solomon has a vineyard at Baal Hamon, which he leases out to tenant farmers. Each of them pays 1,000 pieces of silver for harvesting its fruit. But my vineyard is mine to give, and Solomon need not pay 1,000 pieces of silver. But I will give 200 pieces to those who care for its vines. O my darling, lingering in the gardens, your companions are fortunate to hear your voice. Let me hear it too. And this verse, it suggests, is spoken by the young man. And then the final verse of this book, spoken, the suggest by the young woman. Come away, my love. Be like a gazelle or a young stag on the mountains of spices. Now, I have to admit, we just read through this, and I didn't really see that to love's interpretation that I heard somebody speak about a few years back. But, you know, people read it in different versions, and they make the meaning of it that they're able to make of it. Like I say, at its foundation, it is just a poem of romantic love, of a connection between a man and a woman. And you can read then into what it says, what you choose to read into it. And as we suggested, that interpretation that this is all about our relationship with our Creator, that is a valid interpretation, but you can carry that overboard, as I think they do when they say Jesus didn't have long hair because his hair was bushy and black, as if that really means anything. I think that is a pretty questionable way of reading this book. But anyway, we have read through Song of Solomon, which means that next week we get to start on the prophetic book of Isaiah. 66 chapters, arguably the longest book in the Old Testament. I remember that being an issue once. We had a Bible trivia quiz, and one of the questions was, what was the longest book in the Old Testament? And I gave one answer, and they came up with a different answer. And my family looked it up, and we counted. We thought Isaiah was longer than Psalms. I think that's what we found. I forget exactly which way it was. But anyway, Isaiah has some things that are hard to understand, but a lot of it is, well, he's sometimes called the gospel prophet, because in what he writes we see references that point forward to Jesus. And so we'll get started on that book next week. Chapter 1 is going to be interesting, even though it's kind of negative at first glance. But then there is that passage that gets used a lot, and you know, we'll find out about that when we get there. So that is for next week, and we invite you then to join us next week when we open that book and begin to read through it. And so now we say, until next week, goodbye and God bless.